Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing a set on indexing. The following table gives the relative prices of three ingredients used in the baking of bread across 7 months of a year. So, taking a look at the table, the ingredients used in baking of bread: flour, milk, sugar. Makes sense. 7 months from January to July makes sense. For each ingredient, the prices in January are indexed to 100. Now, what does this mean? The prices in January are indexed to 100. Let me think about it for a second. Could it mean that the price of flour, milk, and sugar was each 100 rupees in January? That's highly unlikely. And then what would indexed mean anyway? Instead, it would probably mean that if the price of flour was 50 rupees, let's say, price of milk was 40 rupees, and the price of sugar was 25 rupees, then the price of flour instead of 50 was assumed to be 100. That means a factor of multiplication of 2 existed for flour. The price of milk instead of 40 was assumed to be 100. That means a multiplication factor of 2.5. The price of sugar was assumed to be 100 from 25. That means a multiplication factor of 4. So therefore, whenever I would want the prices of flour in any month, what I would do is just divide the corresponding value by 2. So 108 by 2, the price would be 54 in April, or 102 by 2, the price would be 51 in June, so on and so forth. Actually, this is exactly what indexing means. To see the trend in prices or any particular quantity which fluctuates over time, what we do is we assume the base value to be 100 and then we study the change with respect to 100. So it's very easy to tell what's the percentage change. Now from January to February, the price of flour became 102 from 100. That means there's a 2% change. And because percent change is very important when we are comparing rates of growth, so indexing makes this process really easy. However, as far as this set was concerned, we don't need to think about all this. All we need to understand is whatever the prices in January were, we've assumed that those prices of the ingredients to be 100 each. Doesn't mean that the prices are 100 each. That's all. Assume that there are no other costs involved in the baking of bread. Fair enough. I can do that. Let's go to the first question. Now that we've understood the table, in how many of the given months was the baking cost of bread definitely more than that in January? Well, let's think about February. The price of flour has definitely increased. The price of milk has remained constant. However, the price of sugar has gone down. Now, if we require a lot of sugar, then the weighted average of all these three quantities will go down as compared to January. Therefore, we cannot say that the cost in February is definitely less than or more than that in January. However, notice March has an interesting trend going on. As compared to January, the price of flour has increased, the price of milk has also increased, and the price of sugar has also increased, which means the price of all the three ingredients has increased, and therefore this month's cost of bread will definitely be more than that of January. Once I've done this for these 2 months, I realize all I need to check is how many more months are there wherein the price of each quantity has either increased or remained the same. Well, in April, milk causes a problem. In May, milk again causes a problem. In fact, in June and July, both milk causes a problem because milk has been at a consistently lower price than that in January. And therefore, I cannot clearly say anything about April, May, June, and July. So I can definitely say with 100% confidence that the cost of bread in March was definitely more than the cost of bread in January. So the correct answer for this question should be answer option C, 1, the month of March. Let's solve the second question. In which of the given months was the baking cost of bread the highest? One would feel, after having answered the previous question, with a lot of confidence that the answer should be March. But think about it for a second. They're not asking definitely more than that in January. They're asking the highest cost. Now notice that the cost of flour has risen to 108 from 100 in April. So if the flour requirement in baking bread is a maximum cost, then the cost in April would definitely be more than the cost in March, even though the cost of milk has gone down. Like, let's say the cost of flour constitutes 90% of the cost of baking of bread, whereas the cost of milk and sugar each constitute 5%. Then the change in milk would not mean much, and the change in sugar would not mean much. However, the change in cost of flour would mean a great deal in the cost of baking of bread. And therefore, because I don't know what is the distribution of cost among the ingredients, I cannot really answer the question. Because if flour is a very expensive ingredient or constitutes the maximum proportion of the cost of bread, April would be the month. Whereas if sugar is the highest constituent, then probably June would be the correct answer. Because we do not have additional data, we must say that the correct answer to this question must be cannot be determined. Let's take a look at the third question. In at least how many of the given months was the baking cost of bread less than that in April? We need to minimize the number of months where the baking cost of bread was less than that in April. So we will just take a look at those months wherein each of the three quantities are indexed to a lower price than April. Based on milk, we can straight away strike off January, February, March, and May. Based on sugar, I can also take off May and June again. That means January, February, March, May, June definitely have a chance of having a higher price than April. Whereas, let's look at July. The cost of flour has gone down. The cost of milk has remained the same. The cost of sugar has gone down. Therefore, in this month, the cost of bread will definitely be less than April. There is at least one month where the cost of bread is less than that in April. I hope you're able to understand the concept of indexing thoroughly. Let's finally take a look at the last question and conclude our discussion. If the expenses on flour was twice as much the expense on each of milk and sugar in January, in which month was the baking cost of bread the lowest? Now they have given us a hint here. Let's say the total cost of baking bread is 100 bucks. Then the cost of flour, milk and sugar should be 50, 25, 25 because the ratio was given to be 2:1:1. Now that we know that, we can find the cost of each of the ingredient in each of the months. So the answer is definitely not cannot be determined. The answer is determinable. All I need to find out is what is the answer. Now, it must be one among April, June and July. By observation itself, I can say that April is the month wherein the cost of flour, which is the costliest ingredient, is the highest. And therefore, April is ruled out. So all I need to do is check June and July. Let's check June and July. Even in June and July, a stronger contender is July because the cost of flour and the cost of sugar more in June than in July. So therefore, I'll just go ahead and say, let's tick July. However, we would want to be more precise in answering our question instead of just doing an approximation here. So let's calculate the cost in June and July each. Now, the cost of flour in January was 50, which was assumed to be 100. That means we've multiplied 2 all across the way. Whereas in milk and sugar, each we've multiplied 4. So when I want to find the prices, I divide by 2 for flour and divide by 4 for milk and sugar each. So 102 would become 51 when divided by 2. 95 would become 23.75 when divided by 2. Sorry, 4. And 105 would become 26.25 when divided by 4. Adding it up, I'd get 26 and 24, 50 and 51, 101. Whereas July, 97 by 2, that's 48.5. 98 by 4, that's 24.5. And that's 25.25. Adding it all up, I'd get 73 and 25, 98.25. Which clearly shows that the price in July is lower than the price in June. And therefore the correct answer is answer option C, July. I hope you could follow the concept of indexing thoroughly, practice some more sets on indexing, and you should be good to go. Have a great day. Thank you.